Hey y'all, and welcome to Stivers Uncensored. So today we're in a little different look. We are actually in our bedroom because the kids are outside.
Yeah, so this is a private place for us. Never do videos in here, but it's a snow day for them and their friends, so we didn't want to bother them, and obviously we need to be alone to talk about this stuff. So yeah, we shut the door and letting them do their thing, and we'll talk in here. So welcome to our bedroom.
Yeah, welcome to our bedroom. So before we dive into today's video, thank you all for the response. This has like almost rejuvenated me completely for doing videos.
Same.
Not necessarily that like we disliked it outside of this. It's just the good responses make it feed us, that make us want to feed back. You know what I mean? And sometimes on the Homestead channel, it can get a little wild for.
And it's about feeling a connection too. This has opened us up to feel a connection with you all, and then you all to feel that with us as well. So that kind of bridges this gap.
Right.
This, it's the same thing you have in all relationships. It opens a line of communication, and now we can be vulnerable because we feel safe doing it with you all because the response has been so amazing. So thank you very much. We're excited to keep this going. We've said it before, but we have so many things in mind, so many topics, and today is going to be interesting.
It is. We switched spots.
We did. But first we had to go turn the heat down.
Yeah.
Oh, this room gets so hot.
It really does.
Sometimes we don't want to have a fire, so we turn the heat on, and then we always regret it because it is incredibly warm in this room.
Yeah, days like today, if I was to start a fire, it'd be 150 degrees in here. We're finally warming up from the snow, and things are starting to melt, but fire really only necessary when it's below freezing.
Yeah.
Okay, so what is today's topic, babe?
Yeah, so one of the things that I have been talking to, not just recently, not since this channel started, but with friends and family and acquaintances, because they've always noticed that Zach has this ability as a man, and I'm not saying it's unique because I know a lot of men are capable of doing this and do treat their wives that way, but he always seems to be open and vulnerable and just willing to share his emotions and kind of like put his heart on his sleeve and not have to shy that away, in public or in private. He's just always been this person that shares his love with me, and it's incredibly beautiful. There's nothing I love more in the world. But I think it can be like kind of touchy for other people because they're like, well, why is my spouse or why is my partner not always that way? And so I just kind of wanted to deep dive into that and ask his perspective and why he is that way, if he's always been that way or if this is new. Is it his personality? Is it his horoscope sign? Like, what is it? Like, why are you able to be open and vulnerable with me?
Yes, I mean, that is a loaded question, so pack up and sit down for a minute. There's a lot of things and I'm speaking for myself as a man, not as men in general, but hopefully maybe there's something that will connect in this. For me, I know one of the biggest things that I need out of a companion is safety. Like, I'm not safety from a perspective of physical or anything like that, but safety of not being abandoned. I need to know that they're truly going to be there, like no matter what, through all everything, the bad, the good, the ugly. They're not going to pack up and run. And so that safety and security of one, knowing that I can truly be myself with you is probably one of the most important things. But then also just kind of feeling it from you too. So it works both ways, right? A man's not going to be vulnerable if the woman's not vulnerable. And I know in our relationship, being more the conservative one, it's taken a lot for you to step out of your box and tell me some things or open up about some things. And that's stuff that has been impactful for me. And it's allowed me to just continue to gain that trust, continue to gain that security. And then because I want to be vulnerable. I want to be able to have that because so many things blossom from there. And I see so many couples, like, of course, TV, but like other things too. And I'm like, if they just communicated better, they both want the same thing. And so I've always tried to be self-aware of that and make sure that you have all of me. And once I got to that point, I hate to say this so bluntly, but I'm not great with polite words. I don't care about anything else. I don't care about anyone else. I only care about you and the kids. And so everything is just about us in my head.
So do you think that is a personality trait or something you've gained from past experiences, or where does that come from?
Sure. So
Because I think that's important for people to understand, because maybe if it's not typical of your spouse to have that type of personality or just like outpouring of love, then maybe understand why and how we can open up the communication to get there.
Right. I don't know that it's necessarily part of my personality. I'm a very open person. I can be a friend to everyone. And anyone I meet, we can have a good time together. Like, we can get to know each other, we can have a good time. But I felt like I've lived a life of surface level talk. Like, that's the reason that I can get along so well with people, is because I can just talk about anything and adapt, and we can have a good time, and I don't have any issues with that person. But I think us, like in all past relationships and the start with yours, it was kind of the same thing. It was surface level. Like, I never wanted to dive too deep into the trauma of my past, I guess, and get to that level of vulnerability. I'm also a Cancer. If you are a horoscope,
I think that's a huge part of it.
right? If you're a horoscope follower, so Cancers are just, I guess, but to me, that's that surface level. Like, the reason that people like Cancer so much is because they're fun. They can work a room, just all that stuff that me trying not to say that I am those things, but that's what Cancers are. Cancers are just laid back, and people seem to like to be around Cancers. But it doesn't necessarily mean Cancers want to be around everybody else. We can do it, but it's exhausting sometimes. And with you, it's not exhausting. Like, I want you to know more. You pull stuff out of me that I think I've just pushed down, and now that it's out, like with you, it makes me feel better.
Yeah. So, do you think that people can make it if they don't open themselves up completely?
No. I don't. I mean, you can, because it always.
I guess if that's the style of relationship you want, but that's never been something that you and I wanted.
And I would challenge everyone. I know that's not what they want. Like, you don't want a surface level Cancer conversation and then be exhausted from it. Like, you want to be with your spouse. You want to be around. You want to have an outlook of, I want to hang out with them. You don't want to just get through, hey, how was your day? How was your week? Good. Awesome. Tough day at work. Yeah. Let's have a glass of wine and watch something.
Right.
Like, I never wanted that out of a relationship. I always wanted it to be more with you and me. But I do think it's something that you can get there. I mean, obviously you have to grow and work on it a lot. But you have to work on it naturally. Like, if something comes into your head, just say it. Like, say it out loud. Take the hit, like, if it doesn't land well. But it's more steps of you trying.
Yeah.
And the more you try, the more the spouse will. And then next thing you know, you're not just talking about basic stuff.
Yeah. So for people that are watching that maybe are in this position or have experienced just, that wall of surface level, how do we dig deeper? What would you give as an example to maybe first, like if someone was dealing with someone that was surface level and didn't open up, what would you need from somebody to get you to feel safe and comfortable to open up?
So it depends on the relationships, and this is going to depend on who needs to initiate it, in my opinion. There's going to be somebody that's more willing to share, and there's going to be somebody that's not. If you're both not, then somebody's just going to step up to the plate and try. But to me, the easiest way to start diving into somebody is, I give you a hard truth, you give me a hard truth. I know I gain trust once I know you've given me something that you haven't shared with somebody else. Or you're giving me something deeper on how you feel, and I know how you stuck your neck out for that. And that's going to allow me to open up more as well. I do think, like, within our relationship, I felt like I don't know why I felt this way about you, but I was more willing to share my deeper stuff right out the gate. And that's a scary spot too. So, like, if you are in a relationship where nobody has, it's scary to take that first step because you're not sure what the response is going to be.
Yeah.
What was the question? Did I get it?
What would you need for, like, a specific example of somebody? So, you talked about sharing truths. Could that be like in the form of a game?
Could be in the form of a game.
Yeah.
Whatever it takes to get it out of the person, and just having that safety zone. So, like, an exact example that I know her and I can talk about is kind of just our childhood. Our childhood was good, but there was small things that, like, we haven't dealt with. You know what I mean? And we got to that point by just talking about our childhoods. Right. Like, it wasn't, we weren't like,
personal towards each other.
No, it was just like getting to know each other, and it was like, oh, me too. So, like, for us, having a connection that was alike allowed us to deep dive more and be more vulnerable. And then, as you know, there's been times on the porch where that's really bottomed up to both of us crying. You know what I mean? But all in good ways, because it just feels so good to get that out. So specifically, yes, games. Talk about stuff that maybe y'all haven't talked about before, like childhood experiences. What was your life like? Talk about the times that you worked together. What was your life like when you were single? What was college like? What was high school like? Because all that stuff could spark things that now you have in common. That's what I kept trying to common. But that now you have in common, that could spice up things that are good and maybe a little ugly that y'all can talk about together.
Yeah. And those conversations are going to feel really raw and vulnerable. And just make sure that you're creating a safe space for your spouse to do that. Don't judge, don't try to be like, I can't believe you did that, or because I'm guilty of that. Right. I very much am. I love to learn about his past, but sometimes, mainly in the past, when I've heard stuff, I've just judged and been turned off, and that's immediately shut him down. Why would he want to share anymore when I couldn't even handle the small things that he told me? So going forward, I try to keep an open mind. Now, I mean, I know that whatever he's going to tell me is for a purpose and to open up a line of communication. But I also know that he loves me, and he's not saying it from a place of malice. Right. He's not trying to hurt me. He's not trying to cut me deep or make me jealous. It is strictly informational purposes, because that stuff is important. I'm not saying that you have to know every detail of your spouse's past, but it is very important to know why they are who they are and why they do the things that they do. And that stuff only comes from past experiences. It's not created on the day-to-day. Right. Their true self is created from the things that they have been through, the people that raised them, the childhood trauma that they had, the wonderful experience that they have had. All that bundled into one makes them who they are.
Yeah, I completely agree. So don't judge, don't take it personal, and don't get jealous.
Yes.
I know.
Create a safe space.
Right. I mean, there's been times where, she talks about her past. I mean, I have to fight sometimes that jealousy, and I have to remind myself, like, she's with me now. Like, that's all in the past. And like you said, it's information purposes only. It's not like this is what happened then, that's not there. Because it'll shut down the conversation. And if you do, like, if say the jealousy does come up, maybe that's something that you need to talk about. Like, why is it that you're getting jealous about their past, or about something that happened so many years ago that has no impact on your life today with your spouse? If it's still got that much of a burning urge in you to where you truly feel jealous, that's our next topic of conversation that we need to have. And let's figure out why that's happening.
And maybe step away for a second. But come back to it. Don't just step away and then never talk about it again because it feels too raw or too uncomfortable. Those things need to be talked about, especially if it sparks some kind of emotion, whether it's rage or jealousy or anger or sadness. If it is sparking an emotion that strong in you, then it needs to be processed and worked through.
Right. And I would say, these conversations need to happen several times a week.
Yes.
You need to have these intimate, deep conversations, because what I want to get to next is what happens when the man and the woman, or spouses, whatever, are completely vulnerable. I mean, I think that's the stuff that people are, one, scared of, but two, because it's just so unknown, but it's really beautiful and awesome.
Do you feel put on the spot?
Do I feel put on the spot? Not really. I mean, we didn't I kind of like knowing what I'm going to say beforehand. But I also
think you're better with your words when you don't know.
You think so? Probably. I can definitely see that. When I don't have any idea and I'm just like, we're having a conversation. But I wanted to talk about now what it's like when you do actually feel vulnerable. Like, that's the next level. So it's like, you grow to get there together, and then what's it like afterwards? So starting off, talking from a male's perspective, who, in my opinion, I'm a big dude. Like, physically, like, my job has been like as the protector. I actually tell her, guys are a lot like loyal dogs. If you treat us well, we'll treat you well until someone comes and tries to bite, and then we'll attack. And that's when the testosterone and the manly-nisms and stuff like that come out as a protector. But a loyal dog is very emotional. If you have one that truly is by your side, they want more love than fight, right? They want that, but it's kind of scary. And so from a male's perspective, once I fully felt vulnerable, I think I was a little worried of how you would portray me, like how you saw me as your husband. Like, you can see me cry, but can you also see me as the guy that'll protect you in a situation where you need me to be a man, like, or you need me to be the protector, you know? And so maybe you can elaborate on, once I got there, did it change your views of me? Did it, you know, from originally, or just kind of any details around that?
Yeah, I mean, that's a good question. I would say that's something I never experienced before in a past relationship. So I have to say, I mean, thinking of that, like before that any happened, I guess it did seem scary. Like, you know, thinking, do I love you enough to be able to feel both of those things? And the answer was yes.
Yeah.
Seeing your masculinity, but then also seeing you be sensitive and like sometimes just needing to be held at night and not holding me is beautiful to me. And it is something that I will always provide as your wife and as your spouse, because you can be so masculine and such the protector, and you always are. Like, I know that you would do that no matter what, but me being able to take on that role sometimes also builds me up to know that you love me so much that you feel safe with me.
Right.
And sometimes I might take over that role for a little bit, and for you to share that with me is incredible. And I would definitely not want to be in a relationship that didn't reciprocate that.
Sure. I like that. And men we're very simple. There's not a whole lot in our head that's going on, but we are complicated in some senses of, it feels like the world either looks at us as strong or weak, but not both. You know what I mean? And so, especially like when you're in the dating game and stuff, like you're like, I don't want to like lead off and like make myself look too weak. Like, it's like we have to gain the masculinity piece first, like proving that we can do that. And then we can feel comfortable showing the weaker side of things, which I hate even using the word weak, because I don't feel weak in that. I feel honest and trustworthy and vulnerable, rather than feeling weak. But it seems like that's how other people portray it.
Yeah.
Men's friends are also a big problem in this scenario. Once the man can like stop wanting to impress them, and I'm not only want to say impress, but just to hold a level of what they look like to them, the persona to their friends. That's like another step when a man starts doing it in public around people.
Absolutely.
So, you know, it's going to start at home. That man might not look the same to start when you're in a group setting around his buddies or whatever it may be. He might still be trying to show that masculinity. But then that's where the spouse comes into play again. It's, you know, take charge, make him be vulnerable.
Yes.
Show
him that's what you need.
Yeah. And, you know, PDA is okay. And it's a good thing. Like showing that you love your spouse and like giving them a kiss or giving them a hug just out of nowhere. I can tell you, men or whoever might be in this position, if you feel like you have to hold a presence, it's because that your friends wish they had that. Like they wish they had what you had, but their response is going to be poking jokes, making fun, whatever it may be. So that's a lot. It's just hard from a public eye for myself to get to that level, but you pulled it out of me pretty easily.
So we have a homework assignment.
So we want you all to deep dive a little bit more into your relationships. We do have a couple things that we want you to ask each other.
Yes. So one, we want you to sit down with your spouse, whether it's after this video or the next day. Try to do it in private. You know, don't be around your kids or any other distractions. Turn off the TV. Maybe have a little music playing quietly, a little Marvin Gaye.
Yeah. Little Usher.
A little Usher. But just sit down with each other face to face. Knee to knee, hands if you want to hold hands. If you're not there yet, fine, but you can try that in another exercise. But start off by asking your spouse, whoever it is that needs to be asked this question, or maybe it's both of you.
Yeah. So, actually, I would challenge. Let's not, because the one thing we won't want to do is single anybody out. That it never helps in a relationship either.
So flip a coin, see who gets to go first, so it's fair. And sit down and ask your spouse, what was the question?
Do you feel like you have fully opened up to me?
And can you be completely honest with me about anything?
And the initial answer might just be yes. So that's why we gave you a little extra homework to really find out if that answer was true without saying you're lying. You know what I mean? So down below in our description, we'll put it in the comments too. We have about 4 or 5 questions that we want you all to ask. Now, these are just going to be stuff that you're going to be open and honest about. And it's not quick answers, right? So once you answer them, talk about it. Let that spiral into whatever it may spiral into. But that's going to be hopefully help you all just learn a little bit more and maybe be able to open up a little bit more even if you think you're fully there.
Yeah.
You always need a little bit more.
And if the answer to that first question was no, then you need to ask your spouse, both of you, what do you need from me to be comfortable and vulnerable enough to do that? And those questions will help with that as well. But first, you have to get to the place where you can be open and honest and answer these questions. And if you're not there yet, we have to figure out why and what your spouse needs from you to be able to do that. And you have to be honest there.
Yeah, and one thing just popped in my head while I was talking about that we should have probably added in this video. It's not always about our past, right? It's not always pre the relationship. If we're in long-term relationships where we've been married for many years, 20, 30, 40 years, there might be something that happened in our marriage that has shut someone down.
Yeah.
So that needs to be something that we need to discuss as well. What is it that you're still holding on to? What happened that has made this wall come up that we need to break it down because we only get one life to live. We want to do this the best we can this one time. And so if divorce or separation is not something that is going to happen, we don't want to live in misery either.
Yeah.
So let's figure out what that is. And that'll be some of the questions that'll help to pull that out and maybe finally resolve something that needs to be resolved.
Yes, because a lot of marriages can hold resentment, and we don't need that. We don't need to have resentment. And if there is, that stems from whatever, but we need to figure out what that is and figure out how we can let go of that and move forward.
Think about it, y'all. Do you want to spend 10, 20 years mad? Or
just surface level.
Right. Just, do you want that? Do you want, once you're on your deathbed and hopefully you have your spouse beside you holding your hand, what do you want to look back? Do you want to look back and be like, man, I held on to something for a really long time, or I wasn't truly honest with her or him because of X, Y, and Z? No. Let's work on it every day. Let's get that better to where it feels good. So when that unforeseen day comes when one of us are gone, we can say, you know what? We only had one shot. We did the best we absolutely could.
Yep.
All right, y'all. If you're new around here, hit that subscribe button for us.
We love y'all.
Until the next one.
Bye.
Bye.